Hey everybody, my name is Jay, and this is Eye of a Samurai, back with another analysis on one of the WUFL matches that happened... How long ago was it now? A handful of weeks ago? Was it already a month? Time sure flies when you're...
No, it was like beginning of this month.
Yeah. So not necessarily a full month yet, but this is yet again another Eye of a Samurai going over one of the matches with one of the competitors in said tournament. Also being streamed live on Twitch, so if you're interested in being part of these so that you can actually ask questions while this is happening, you can check out my Twitch link down below. But for today, we're going to be looking at PartyWolf versus Skyll, and I have with me said PartyWolf.
Hey guys.
It's PartyWolf. He's going to be playing, he's going to be the person on the left versus the person that's on the right, who hopefully I will get for another one of these at a future date, because that'll be the first international guest that I will have on Eye of a Samurai, and that will be exciting. But we're going to have Cassandra versus Mitsurugi. This was in the pools, where, do you remember what your record was at this point?
What was my record at this point? I think my first match was Dexus, then I played Kura, and then I think I played Skyll, so I was
2-0. So you were doing fine, but not necessarily to the esteemed record that you would have by the end of the day.
Correct.
Did anybody in any of the games get a 7-0 aside from you?
Sonic Fox did.
Oh, well, you know.
And I think that's it.
That's what he does. But presumably you got to play...
Maybe Arslan did too, but I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Presumably you got to play against Skyll earlier before the tournament had actually started. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say we played 2 sessions total.
How did you feel walking away from those kinds of things? Did you take it very seriously? Did it appear that Skyll was taking it very seriously? Or did you try to hold back a little bit, that way you weren't showing your whole hand for the actual tournament?
Well, so the way I view casuals is I try, but at the same time, the things that I'm trying are not necessarily, like, the things I'm trying to win with aren't necessarily the things that I will end up deciding on by the time it gets to tournament. So, like, I'll try a bunch of different strategies in casuals to see what I'm feeling, and usually by the end of the set, I know the best way to play by the time it comes to tournament. So, like, I'm not sandbagging, per se, but I'm just trying to figure out how to win. Kind of like, you know, when you're playing, like, in any set, it's just, you're feeling out your opponent.
You're giving yourself some semblance of, like, a template of what you're going to do, some sort of a rhythm, and what kind of moves to use, but you're not necessarily going that extra mile to try and clutch out a certain match or two in a casual
especially since in casuals, like, it doesn't, like, end anywhere specific, so there's not really a point in exerting
There's
yourself.
no reason to try and, like, exercise that clutch factor in a situation, because there is no real tense moment in a casual set.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, I don't really use my meter that much when I play casuals either, for that same reason.
And so you're going into this with Cassandra, not exactly the most heavily played character around, and you're going up against Mitsu.
Yeah, she was the worst character on Blue Boy's tier list before this tournament.
I'm sure it was very satisfying knocking him out of the tournament with said worst character.
I mean, it would have been satisfying no matter what the character, but it definitely I feel like people don't know my character very well, and I feel like that's been true for a while, but.
What should they know about the character that they either underestimate or they don't entirely know what she's about?
I think in this patch, people complain a lot about stepping and ducking. Like, that's like what you're supposed to do.
The step duck meta,
and that's not how the game works, in my opinion. Just because if you're truly just stepping and ducking, then all you have to do is delay slightly, and then it doesn't matter, because they're just stepping, then ducking. Because you have to stop your character's movement completely to do the step duck in the first place.
Very similar to Soul Calibur 5, I find. It was not exactly the hardest thing in the world to delay a certain vert launcher, and depending on the character, depending on the situation, and be able to catch movement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like waiting out a just guard, but the big difference between a just guard is in a step duck is that a just guard beats anything on that timing, whereas a step duck will still lose to your crouch grabs, your mid horizontals, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as strong, but yeah, I think it's something that's very overrated in general.
Now, was there something that you ended up taking away from the matches that you had with Skyll, or maybe training that you had against Mitsurugi in general that you were coming into this match with? Maybe not necessarily that specific to Cassandra, but I guess just overall, what were you expecting to deal with regards to Skyll, other than your basic Mitsurugi stuff? I guess, just overall, the ability to move, it really seems like Skyll kind of has that on a whole other level than, it sets him apart from other Mitsurugi players.
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind with Mitsu is that he's almost has the same weakness as Gro, where nothing tech crouches except for the one thing that does, which is 1A, and that lethal hits you for tech for tech or high.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to like play it similarly. And one of the nice things about Cassandra too is that she has her single A, right, has an extension into a mid. And why that's really good is the fact that one, she can delay it, and two, you can use it as sort of like a same in like a game like Tekken. This happens very commonly. Is a lot of characters will have a high mid string that comes and where the mid comes out pretty quickly after the jab, and this is very good for like stopping people who mash like tech crouching, like they go duck and then do a launcher from crouch that crouches at the same time, and because the crouching moves are very slow, you still have a reasonable amount of time to input the string and end up countering them. And even, let's say I got counter hit out of my AK with the Mitsurugi 1A, the lethal hit condition shouldn't trigger because I did it mid.
Right.
So,
effectively mitigating the heavy risk that one would typically target with something like a high read that Skyll would be doing.
Right, so I think that's something that's really good about Cassandra that's probably lost a little bit more online, just because of the fact that AK is already kind of a hard string to delay when you're like reactively seeing what's happening on the screen.
Yeah,
because it's not a very big input window.
It's a timing rhythm-based kind of thing, which isn't really something that I find translates very well to online gameplay.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to use online. But yeah, I think the key thing when you're fighting Mitsu is you can really condition him with your highs in order to make him stop doing stuff. But like I said, the issue that you'll run into is 1A is not that risky unless you're playing like a very small amount of characters, and that is the main deterrent for your highs.
So the last thing before I actually get fully into the match, was there anything that you were looking for with regards to a stage, some sort of environment that you would be playing against him where you feel like your character would be better than his?
The way I see stages in general with Cassandra is I don't think she's very, like her wall combos aren't that great. Her ring out carry is like okay.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of characters that better ring out carry. So most of the time I don't really care. I just want to make sure the stage isn't designed to where the other character is very favored.
So you want to try and like get to like a neutral kind of stage.
Yeah, a neutral stage would be really great.
I would imagine that Mitsurugi would kind of feel the same way. I don't really typically think of Mitsurugi as a high... I don't think of him as a Nightmare or a Yoshi or somebody who really benefits very heavily from lopsided stages that have like fantastic walls or no walls or anything like that. So I would imagine both of you would be interested in playing in a neutrally kind of scrappy kind of rhythm.
Yeah, I think the only kind of like ring out manipulation that Cassandra's good at is like when you have the half wall, or I guess the ring edge in general. If she GIs you, 236B 16 frames, so you can get rung out by that move. And she has a bunch of different routes to do half wall ring outs with the, like sometimes It's kind of inconsistent depending on the stage, but you could just mindlessly press 2 through 6B over and over again most of the time, and that rings out over half wall.
Yeah.
Or you could do the more technical combo, which is what I try to do if the angle allows me, is you do 2 3 6B or some other equivalent for a wall spat, and then you do 2B just frame and get the kick, and then you do 2 1 4 B hold, and then 2 3 6 AB, and that rings out over every half wall in the game. It's a very cool looking combo.
Yeah, as I'm trying to imagine in my head, it's kind of funny hearing what people sometimes have to do with certain characters in order to get ring outs and that kind of thing. With other characters, it's like maybe the simplest thing in the entire world. So like compared to like other characters, that seems like such a roundabout way of going, where I can imagine me as a commentator thinking like, this is a combo that's going to take 10 minutes, and the whole time I'm not expecting you to get the ring out.
I mean, if you play like Keel, you just do 3B, 8B, or if you play like Astroth, you just do a wall spot, then B6B.
Yeah. I just like the idea of me, like, in my head, as I'm talking, as a commentator, just thinking to myself, this is going to be a ring out. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, maybe it is. No, it doesn't look like it. It's just going to be really good damage. It is a ring out, okay. Just like going through that myriad of emotions. Yeah,
hers are a little bit longer.
Let's get into this match. If I remember correctly, a large chunk of it... No, never mind. Guild stage happens later. So you end up getting, like... I mean, I would argue that these kinds of characters, this would be considered, like, a neutrally kind of stage.
Yeah, like, I don't really mind stages in this matchup. I think the only one that'd be maybe annoying is maybe, like, a really big stage. Just because I mean, if you're gonna, like, compare the two characters, like, he probably has an easier time spacing Cassandra than Cassandra does Mr. Rugi. So, I don't think it matters. Oh god, yeah. I love
something that I noticed at the very beginning here that I thought was really interesting. So, you end up having, like, a slight disadvantage here. You end up getting this grab, right? You go into this, and then you immediately back up to beat out the mash that Skyll ends up doing. You don't end up getting any damage, but still important information to have at the beginning of a set. Then we get into quite literally the exact same kind of situation. You have a slightly different combo that's still a techable knockdown, and you went on the completely different side of the seesaw. So the first time you ended up doing a setup off of the same grab where you ended up backdashing to try and beat a mash, and then this time you ended up being correct again by beating Skyll's backdash into let me be defensive because he called out my mash the last time, and you ended up running in and getting like an additional hit as well. Do you remember like why you decided to pick two different routes on the same command grab there?
Sure. So if you rewind to the first one, you'll notice that this grab spacing is larger, but the trade-off is that you maximize your meterless damage here.
Okay.
That route.
So this was max damage.
This is max damage, but bad frame situation.
Sure.
But you have the spacing here, so like really the only favorable thing to do there is to back up usually, unless you just know they're frozen up. And then here at the 8A plus B, you have pretty good Oki.
So still a techable knockdown, but I guess I assume 6-6B there is like practically a force block?
It's a pretty decent option, yeah.
Okay.
And also if they Kemi after getting grabbed, the Quake Stun will do Kemi Trap.
Sure. Yeah, I remember you having a lot of tricky stuff in this entire tournament, and almost going out of your way to make sure that an unblockable setup won you the set on every single pools match.
Dude, her combo routes are probably the most
well,
advanced
he had to block
in the
that.
game as far as like what you can choose.
Right.
You have so many options. Like here I did it again.
Yeah, that time he ends up staying on the ground as well. So I like the fact that he continues to kind of bob and weave and change what his reaction is to certain situations off of the same kind of setup, and you keep meeting him. It kind of reminds, like, just effectively corralling him into a situation over and over again that's similar, but not necessarily identical.
Yeah, and you saw I did, like, run up 2-2K. That means pretty much anything that you want to do.
Okay, so Skyll basically hasn't played at all so far the first two rounds. He had like one little hit, and at this point you're just totally comfortable with just scrapping with him as much. Yeah, there's no reason to take a big bet there. Even if you did take a big bet there, it's not like he could kill you. you kind of just have the lay of the land at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're going with just the fairly basic stuff with Cassandra.
If you ever block that high, you'd never want to backdash because it's 0 on block.
Yeah.
14 frames.
I guess maybe Mitsurugi doesn't necessarily have the ability to sidestep in that kind of situation. Mitsu sidestep, not exactly the most impressive thing, and that's kind of taking it lightly.
Maybe. I don't know for sure. I know there are some things that he cannot step, like Cassandra BB6, which is like the mid variant of her BB string. A lot of characters can step it to the right, but Mitsurugi cannot on hit. So that's actually like she has 2 different tools there.
Oh wow.
And yeah, this is gonna hurt. Probably dead. I think I remember this. Like nothing broke his guard for some reason.
Oh, just had one of like those matches, yeah.
Yeah, like, and then here, like, okay, either it's gonna whip punch or break his guard, and then neither happened.
Yeah, so that kind of blows my mind. He also didn't get the whip punish. Looks like you're trying to try and end it with that guard crush as soon as possible, but yeah.
Yeah, and then
that was pretty incredible.
His guard was just immune to breaking. I would love to see like replay statistics of what his guard stamina percentage was actually at, because I really don't know how he didn't get guard broken.
God, I really wish they were bringing stun bars back. I don't think that's ever been a thing in Soul Calibur specifically, but it's been a thing in Street Fighter. It has been implemented in fighting games before, and I don't really know why they decided to go away from it. I don't know why. Like, do people consider the mystery to be more interesting? I don't. I don't think that that's interesting at all. In fact, I think it's more interesting to see just how close he was to potentially getting guard crushed. I don't know. Namco, if you're listening.
Like, if I knew, I mean, I probably wouldn't have done one Behold in that situation if I knew, like, the exact numbers of everything.
Alright, I think that's the 85th time that we've gotten that grab. Oh, he actually gets a punish on that there.
And then he presses the GI immediately.
He uses a lot of 1A here. I guess kind of like what you were talking about, is that he wants a way to get away from your faster highs. So, it finally happened. So we end up getting, I mean, technically it was a ring out, but, you know, the guard crush ends up winning the day. This is the Geralt stage 1, yeah.
Yeah.
So, an even smaller stage, which I would imagine you're fine with.
Yeah, I believe I rematched here, so... Because like I said earlier, the half-wall ring-out game with Cassandra is pretty okay.
Plus, I would imagine that you're significantly a big fan of having like the wall pressure as well. As a faster character, just overall, the ability to corral your opponent into a corner where he can't necessarily utilize his better backdash, I think would be, like, you know, the most optimal way of going about it. Nice block. Ooh, look at you.
Yeah, so this auto GI here beats every vertical, including this. Which means he can't do that low.
That's a good GI. You're managing to take some advantage right now. Doesn't get the just frame, but he's getting...
Again, I feel like outside of Soul Charge, this I really feel like Skyll has not really had any modicum of momentum. I mean, I guess Mitsurugi in this game is significantly more of a, just wait it out, have your momentum for a short amount of time, but you do so much damage with it that it's okay if, like, the momentum just dissipates. There are other characters that are able to do that level of damage and continue with the momentum, but hey, you get what whatever you can do, I guess. But, it just overall, outside of Soul Charge, I don't necessarily see Skyll winning out in the exchanges all that much. Which I think is an interesting...
Yeah, because, I mean, he really shouldn't, but I think the thing about Mitsu is that his Soul Charge is one of the best. So you can make comebacks all the time, as he does throughout the tournament.
Is he dead?
And
yeah, he's totally dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
Shades of Tamanagi with the wall rising being neutral. But yeah, so already one round away from sealing this away. This was pool, so this was 2 out of 3.
Yep.
But of course, he's got double bar and you have nothing. So whenever I'm in this kind of a situation, I just kind of consider the idea of, like, if I can, 1, gain a bar, and 2, make him spend a bar, I'm okay with losing this round. And just eventually just effectively choke my opponent out of the match with lack of resources. It's such a heavy... As opposed to 5, maybe I'm wrong about this, but as opposed to 5, I find SE6 to be a heavy resource management kind of game. It's significantly more important. Now, I'm actually very surprised that Skyll...
because, like, I think in 5, going for guard damage in rounds, like in the similar sense where like you're trying to build meter here in 6.
Yeah.
I think in 5, if you went for guard damage, you could really just cheese out a round, depending on the character you pick.
Yeah, depends on the character. Definitely coming from an algo player.
This game, unlike SE5, each move has its own guard damage scaling after you break their guard. But in Soul Calibur 5, there is no guard damage scaling on any move. You just get the full combo damage.
Certain characters quite literally win the entire round off of... Well, certain character wins the entire round.
No, let's not get ridiculous. You had Viola too, and like...
Oh, that's who I was talking about. I don't know who else I might be talking about. Anyway.
Algo, dude.
Interesting that he decided to spend meter here. He was doing fine in the exchanges beforehand, and he had the stage positioning, so... A little bit aggressive. I would, I'm curious to know what, why Skyll felt like he needed to spend it there.
I guess he was just scared because he was down 3 rounds.
Yeah, I guess so, but you definitely need that kind of patience. I don't mean to... Okay, well, that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a situation where I whipped and then...
Yeah, you went with the Philly whip and a duck.
Have to, I mean, that's soul charge, I mean, you may as well.
Getting very ambitious there, though. 1A on block into the BB. I mean, I know you almost assuredly don't have a punish in that situation, but still, putting himself at -12 and then going with an I-14, very interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I didn't expect him to...
So in these kinds of situations here, when he goes into a stance like this, you have a lot of stuff that has the ability to get under a lot of the fast highs. I know it's not necessarily the same thing as when he's up close on you for stance pressure, but do you have a certain suite of answers and responses for Mitsurugi stance pressure that you tend to go with? Because I know I certainly do as an Amy player, where I will rely on tech crouches on certain lows to try and circumvent any of the typical things that Mitsus try to do to stop their opponent from pressing buttons in those situations.
I think that was actually one of my weak points in the sets. I wasn't very good at stopping 6BB hold and like the spacing stuff on this thing, but like I mean, Cassandra has a few things. So, like, a common thing that can happen is a Mitsu player will land 1 KB. They'll decide that it is time to do the miss B, the high poke, to frame trap something.
Yeah.
And you can just angel step under the high and lethal hit him with the B if you want to make a hard read.
Oh, nice.
But like over here, when you have it further spaced out, what I should have done more often is done my frisbee toss, I think.
Oh, sure. Is 6K hold ever a response that could work, or is that too ambitious?
I think it can work. It's just, I think most of the time, it's kind of ambitious.
Yeah, you just end up getting it beat out. That would be something like I would do in ranked. Wow, that was a cool combo. We definitely all have to figure out how to do the woes thing, where you just react to 1A hold and punish him to such an upteenth degree. I just don't know if that's going to be reasonable for most human beings. Oh, I'll try to go for the ring out.
Yeah, it almost worked.
Yeah.
He was in the air. Yep.
Alright, so double bar for both. Slight amount of guard damage. I doubt that it's going to become a problem, though. So you decide to spend soul charge immediately. What was the thinking behind that?
I have another bar coming up soon, so it doesn't really matter. And even if this soul charge doesn't work, I maintain Divine Force, similar to how Nightmare maintains a Night Terror charge if he sucks at his soul charge.
Because I'm always worried in this kind of situation where, like, I pop a soul charge, and it's just going to make it so that they can immediately pop their soul charge, and then suddenly, like, the point is moot, as opposed to try and wait to use my meter in a way that might actually present some sort of an advantage. But I guess at the same point, I mean, if both of you have double bar, both of you have double bar. There's not really much that you can do about it.
Yeah, if we both have double bar, and we both waste our bars and don't do much with it, then who's better off at the end of it? I mean, Cassandra is.
The person who has the Divine Force, yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming Mitsu doesn't get the time to do Shura, but even then, Divine Force is potentially better. Oh man, a man after my own heart. 2v6B charge. Alright, so about as good of an outcome as you could have hoped for.
And you can see I already have a bunch of meter from the Titanic struggle, A plus B.
What is that auto GI, that move that you used?
4B?
Yeah.
It beats mid and high verticals.
Okay. So beating out like a 6B or something like that. Oh, didn't get it. Ooh, okay. You caught a lot of people with that kind of stuff. People just trying to escape as much as possible. So if you were to try and do like a guide of like how to deal with Cassandra in that situation, like when you had him on the ground and you ended up catching him for so much damage with the Divine Force there, would you say you just straight up have to get up and block and deal with the chip damage and come what may afterwards, or is there a specific... Should they be rolling to the side? Should they be rolling closer to you to try and get out of those situations? Is there something better to do?
I mean, me personally, I'd probably front Kemi, but I definitely wouldn't back roll because of the lightning. Like, because usually this combo route, back rolling is fine to do every time, but because I still maintain the soul charge, I maintain the divine force too, so I have the option to throw the lightning, whereas normally I would not, because that the 226k
How much
A
soul
plus B does.
charge did you have at the end here? No, you still had a decent amount. I was wondering if skill maybe like assume that your soul charge had dissipated by the end of that combo, but I mean you had enough to where I think you should have figured it.
Well, that's the thing. If the soul charge dissipates during the end of the combo, I still have it.
Oh right, I keep forgetting.
Because it carries over after the thing. Yeah.
1A for 1A.
And then I mean,
yep.
Can't really help this situation.
Yeah. I know those situations.
Knock that once at the wall, and then I mean.
I know those situations all too well, on both sides of it. Man, canceling out of the stance on top of it, just adding so many levels of additional things. Trying to, I'm not sure. So he canceled out of the stance into the 1KB. Presumably that loses to mashing, but maybe it actually is a force block. I would be very surprised if that were to be the case.
I don't think I would have been able to mash out of it, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, there we go. There's that crouch grab. It was going to happen eventually. Skill definitely relied on 1A and 1A hole, or 1AB, quite a lot during this tournament.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, how AK can be a failsafe against tech crouches. Well,
yeah, very similar to what a lot of characters have against that situation when you have an I-10. 6A, betraying you. Do you have the ability to crouch grab him after 1BB on hit?
No, because it's -10,
okay.
And her crouch grab is 12.
12, yeah, right.
The only one with the 10 frame is
right?
Changhua. Yeah.
Man, you got a lot of mileage in this set with BB. Definitely a lot of people looking out for that BK, I guess.
Yeah, I've noticed that one thing that's a lot different is some people like really scout the highs in their strings way more than the mids offline.
Would you say, well, I can definitely see it for an offline thing as opposed to an online thing, because online, even when I try to do it, it doesn't come out. So what's the point? It's very similar to like trying to deal with like ZOS 3AK. Even if I try to guess it, it's not going to work anyway. Do you think that that's probably the better way to go about playing against Cassandra, or would you say that you should allow for the frame advantage to happen because she's not going to get like a whole lot out of it?
I mean, I think if you're blocking that string over and over again in the first place, there's probably something going wrong. Just because she's not very strong at her horizontals for like getting high damages without risking something. So
like the conditioning has already been set.
I think if you just keep BK over and over again, I mean, you're kind of just playing dumb, because it's not like before where she AAs you for you like stepping all the time, and then she still like can cleanly stop another step with more reward. Or if you try to mash after her AA on hit, she can't do a clash setup. Whereas now it's like if you get AA'd by Cassandra, she's point blank to you at 0 frames, right? So in that situation, she can't move around your 2A because of how close she is, and you don't have to worry about the crouch grab because it will trade, and you'll shake out of it. you don't have to worry about the clash setup because there is no clash setup anymore. You just have to worry about like a jump or like a GI or like a 2A trade. So it's like, I think the if when people autopilot the steps a lot more in this matchup than previous patches, I think it's probably a little easier to get out of these situations because like BK B hold. You can make the gamble to duck the high, or you can make the gamble to sidestep the mid, or you can make the gamble to GI the string, because you can GI both variants. But at the end of the day, I mean, all those things aren't easy to do in a real match.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're just relying on crazy reactions, especially if you don't fight the character a lot.
And it also seems like you would say that you should feel comfortable with the fact that, like, if the game is turning into a BB or a BK kind of situation, then the conditioning has already happened where it's not necessarily fully justified, as in, okay, I guess the reason why the person is blocking or is trying to block this string over and over again is because they would rather not try to take the risk of, like, getting hit by an AA, but getting hit by an AA isn't the same as it used to be, and you should feel more comfortable with, like, if that ends up happening, it's arguably still better than trying to take a bet on one of those strings, and just feel comfortable with taking whatever the damage is for an AA, because it doesn't really lead to anything more.
Yeah, because the frames are worse and the damage is, I think, 18?
Yeah.
18 damage?
You should allow for, like, the conditioning to lean harder to be okay with being wrong about something that doesn't do a whole lot to you over and over again, as opposed to being wrong about one thing and losing the whole round because of it.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, maybe you could, I think you could probably get away with, like, you block the first B and then you try to step and then the BK clips you, I guess. Because that's not that big of a deal either, it's just a lot of frame advantage for her.
Yeah.
Moving
a lot more, just overall. But again, maybe it's
also, like, if you whiff B hold or BK, that is a pretty big whiff in the grand scheme of things. You can get launched.
Yeah, that's true.
Every time.
I'm curious again, very similar to what we were talking about with the 22KK from before. I wonder if the reason why Skyll feels like he needs to go for these bigger reads yet again, and I hope that I get to have him on and ask him about it, is that just Mitsurugi's sidestep is very unreliable, and so he doesn't really feel like sidestepping in a lot of these situations where you would typically sidestep with other characters is really the way to go, and he would just rather try to take, like, that big bet just based on, like, a weakness of the character. I don't know. Something to think about.
The other thing, too, is, with Cassandra, if they are stepping a lot, you could just do back turn 2K, back turn grabs.
Yeah. He tried to hop there. I wonder if that's what he meant to do. I can't tell.
I guess he did.
See, like, that combo there is one of those situations where I'm like, is this going to be a ring out? Well, PartyWolf knows what he's doing, so it's probably going to be a ring out, okay? And I just kind of, like, I don't know.
It just can't happen here.
Okay.
Do it.
So
if you
much
could
damage.
do it, I would do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
So you have the Divine Force. He has a bar. I guess the only reason why you might be worried about that bar is because of what happened in the last game. Oh, no. Here we go.
Yep, same area.
Yeah, immediately hard sidestepping to try and get out of that situation. Mitsurugi Soul Charge, in my opinion, very similar to what playing against Mitsurugi in SC5 was like when Mitsurugi had a little bit of meter, which is, if you're going to deal with the mix-ups, sidestepping is probably a pretty good idea. Mitsurugi not exactly the best when it comes to trying to contain sidestep. In a lot of those situations, you had just enough space to where, like, I guess in order to catch you, like, he wasn't going to be able to just do immediately a 1KB. He would have had to run up to you and then do it, or I guess he would have to do, like, a B-slide A to really try and contain you off of, like, a big-time read based on that spacing. So if you're anything like me, you would probably be like, okay, well, I have so much life that, like, if I hard sidestep here, and let's say he does just do, like, a run-up 1KB, I'll get hit by that 1KB, right? But then I'll be in a totally different spacing where the wall isn't to my back, and I can eat that for now, and then just, like, roll and get away from the situation, and at least try to mitigate any kind of comeback factor. Oh boy. Is that it? Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Yeah, just getting out of that stage positioning meant the entire world in that situation. Wow, an immediate... Man, one thing that was really impressive from Skyll were all the instant wall risings. I thought, like, he made wall rising K look like it was 6K. Like, there was no crouching frames whatsoever. Ooh, a hop forward. What was that? Just trying to get in there and do more stuff?
Yeah. You know, sometimes when people feel the pressure, that sort of thing can annoy them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely in a tense situation like this. Like, one round away. A very vintage Mitsurugi Ender round. Yeah, so having definitely a tough time on like the Oki mix-ups at the moment. But it really seems like Skyll is getting more active at the moment. Okay. Oh man, what a bait. What an incredible bait. Ends up catching him. Yeah. So now you're effectively just doing the same thing that he was doing to you before. He has a way of popping, but I guess you're fine with that. And, okay. I guess he assumed that, like, the wall was there. I'm not sure. Maybe he tried to RI and it just didn't come out. He
did try to GI.
Okay, so yeah, he mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's to be expected in a situation like that. And it's kind of a shame that it didn't pan out. Do you can GI that? You don't have to RI it?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's like okay, so that's like Amy's AMSA where it doesn't necessarily turn into a break attack until later.
You know how there's two variants of 2 and 4A?
Mm-hmm.
The 2-hit one and then I think it's 4 hits on the other one. 85 hits.
Yeah, sure.
Depending on which one you do, it's the last hit that'll be a break attack. So, something that can be kind of tricky is some people will see the 2 and 4A start missing, and they'll GI for like the second or third hit. But if they aren't, if the Cassandra player just does the non-charge version, just like the 2-hit one, sometimes that actually messes you up because you end up GIing the second hit, which is the last hit of the 2 and 4A in that situation, which makes it a break attack. And that's a situation where resist impacting could be better.
Yeah, that was definitely some, I guess they just decided to add that as kind of like a theme in this game, where a lot of characters got strings where the last hit is a break attack, but that doesn't necessarily mean... I guess it's a way to, like, get rid of RE as an answer. I guess that was the plan from Namco. I can only speculate, obviously.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's definitely a lot better than... I'm an asshole and I'm spinning around and then you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
For a whole season. So.
But yeah, this was one of the matches, one of the premier matches that led you on to one of the very, very few people, including all 3 games that ended up getting a 7-0 in their pools. Do you feel like there was anything that you took away from this match that you could improve upon? You did end up talking about how your responses to Mitsu stance mix-ups could potentially be stronger. I guess you kind of have to throw up your hands about like the Mitsu like soul charge mix-up pressure, because if you're wrong, you're wrong. There's not really a whole lot that you can do about that.
Can't really.
Yeah.
I don't even feel like I did that much wrong in the first 3 that I lost. Later on the future days, but like, I do think just out of lack of Mitsurugi's to train against all the time, I think, like you were saying earlier, Woes had a really good reaction for 1A that I don't have. That I could probably try to find something to implement there.
May not necessarily be a fair example, because Setsuka also clearly has so much anti for Mitsurugi. Like, Mitsu can't do stance pressure literally at all, and like his backdash is kind of worthless too. Like, that looked real tough. That winner's final set was all Skyll trying to like figure out like, what am I? What? So like nothing? I can do nothing.
Yeah, I think Setsuka just probably just beats that character like.
It certainly seems like it. Gee whiz.
And then like I probably could like 6B hold. I never did anything to try to punish that, and that's a mistake I think going in the future. And then sometimes, you know, I gotta be more willing to frisbee toss when he's like backdashing in this. I feel like sometimes
yeah, it doesn't seem like a bad idea, especially for somebody like Skyll who's going to be playing so defensively. He doesn't necessarily just like, I guess, what do you really have to worry about with regards to neutral when you're like throwing out a frisbee? Somebody running up to you and immediately doing pressure, which I don't really feel like he did much at all. Basically, the only time that I felt Skyll was running up to in order to do something would be on, like, your wake-up. It would be on where he already had some sort of an advantage. He's not necessarily that kind of an aggressive and neutral type of guy.
Yeah, I know some people try to get too fancy with it and try to, like, throw in a C between the charge version of 4A
Okay,
like,
right.
as it's passing, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, what if I just do the regular one? And
Yeah.
then that hits you every time, and then you lose a bar.
Just overall, that would be the kind of thing that I would, like, try to do once when I have a hard read, and I would be dead right about it, but because my reaction time is so slow, I would get beat out anyway. And then it would just be like, okay, the universe, fine. I won't do any of those things that I consider cool. Like, it'll just be the way that it is. But definitely, I appreciated that. I felt like one of the tales of the tape that I saw from this match was utilizing the fact that he was simply not sidestepping anywhere near as much as it seems like you should against Cassandra now. Because, again, her overall horizontal pressure is not necessarily as momentum shifting as it used to be. And so Skyll was just trying to, like, create reads off of beating out some of, like, the higher damage pressure. But the higher damage pressure for Cassandra is so much higher that it's arguably better just to, like, not even engage in that stuff at all.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing too, is if you are one of those players that believe in the conception that if you step duck constantly, it's very good for you, what's going to end up happening against a character like Cassandra, who has very, very easy to press mid verticals on block and hit, you're going to have a very bad time. Like, if I'm just, like, you're step ducking and you get hit by 2TB, that's really sucks. So you should probably not step duck there.
Yeah, I think just overall, one of the main things that I want people to take away when they're either in Twitch or they're watching this on YouTube later and everything, the concept of the whole step duck meta, I think, is heavily propagated by the fact that we don't have offline competition right now. And so timing much larger punishes off of stuff like that to try and get, like, mid launchers that are eventually going to, like, keep track of you even when you're doing a step duck. It's significantly harder to do online, and then once offline comes back, that meta is still going to be there, but it's going to be significantly weaker than it was or is now.
Well, because people online just mash.
Yeah.
So there's no timing to worry about.
I think it was yesterday somebody was asking about, like, my S ranks and stuff, and they were like, well, you didn't, like, get to S rank by just, like, mashing, like, you did other stuff. And I was like, well, to be honest, no. not really. It's a very aggressive meta, but please believe me, anybody who has maybe only come into the Soul Calibur community during COVID times, it really is a different experience going to an offline competition, both in and out of the game. But in the game, I think you would be quite surprised as to what happens in an offline environment. What kind of rhythm you can keep track of, how you're able to beat certain things that are just kind of like fait accompli in an online scenario. You just kind of have to take it as it is. It's not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing from some people that people were thinking that I wouldn't even do that well because they were gauging from my most recent online experiences, and it's just like
always a solid barometer for that kind of thing.
I don't think you should be doing that.
No. Well,
some people play way better online. Like, I mean,
yeah,
you know, it's Nexus's first tournament, so you know you can only say so much. But I mean, he's like a guy that's supposed to be unstoppable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Online, and then he
and there's a lot of outside factors. There's a lot of context, the nerves of playing on such a big stage, the fact that it's your first offline experience, which frankly I don't really remember the last time somebody had a ridiculously solid first offline experience. It really doesn't happen very often.
I don't think that's ever happened.
I mean, if I went back into the annals of history, I'm sure somebody would be able to pull up some sort of a guy from, like, 1999 who came in on his first Third Strike tournament. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't want to make any absolutes here, but it really doesn't happen.
For you.
Okay, I appreciate it. You'll be you'll lay out that sword for me. It's really just an overall experience. Different players play better online than offline. Different players, different characters, different setups. It's a wholeheartedly different kind of game, in my opinion. I think that's gonna wrap it up for this next episode of Eye of a Samurai. PartyWolf, thanks very much for joining me on this. Anything you would like to say as your final words?
I don't really have anything to say. Just thank you everybody for cheering for me, and really felt good about all the positive vibes coming from the community and like other communities about the WUFL event.
Yeah, especially all the other communities. I was very happy about that. And it's still kind of like resonating. There's like different people from different communities who are really taking a closer look at Soul Calibur, as well they should, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's strong romance, literally. Milos and Romanova are like a thing now. That's crazy.
God, the ability to bring people together across all walks of life is a powerful thing that we have here in Soul Calibur 6. So never underestimate it. But thanks again to PartyWolf. Thanks to everybody who watched this live and on YouTube in the future. Until then, I will see you guys next time. Hopefully for Woes, though he's always very difficult to pin down. He's not exactly the most punctual or responsive to certain things. We will see who the next person shall be. But until then, I appreciate you watching, and thanks very much.